years ago, in February 2020, after Storm Dennis, we suffered the second highest flood in the river's history, when at times during that flood there was in excess of 25 feet of water flowing through the valley here to up today's level. It was well inside the Saracens Head Inn where you boarded the boat. It was level with a bar inside the pub there in February 2020. A lot of water, a lot of damage to the pub and the surrounding properties. The river itself, the River Wye, it's 135 miles long approximately, and it has its source up in the Cambrian Mountains in mid-Wales on a mountain in Limon, where another major river has its source, the River Severn. They both start on this mountain 3 miles apart, take entirely different courses, but both meet up again at Chepstow under the Old Severn Bridge. The Old Severn Bridge spans the rivers where they meet, and they then flow off into the Severn Estuary and the Bristol Channel, making them the only two major rivers in the country that actually start and finish at the same place. Keep your eyes peeled for a kingfisher. They are about. We have seen them this morning already. They are about. They're very quick. If I do see one fly across the river or perch anywhere, I will point them out, but you may see one before me. The black and white building here on our front left now, this is one of the oldest buildings in Symonds Yat, dating back to the 15th century, the Old Ferry Inn. And of course it derives its name from the ancient hand-dome ferry, which normally operates from here. They haven't got it up and running yet, but it's on the slipway there on the left, the silver boat. Same as the one at the Saracens Head where you boarded the boat. Hopefully they'll both be running for Easter. But the one at the Saracens Head in days gone by was the main means of getting passengers across, as this ferry here used to be a horse ferry, slightly larger boat than the one on the slipway, the silver one, but it was the main means of getting horses from one side of the river to the other. There were many of these ferry crossings on the River Wye between Hereford and Chepstow, over 100 miles up the river. All the rest have long ago disappeared. The two here in Symonds Yat, the only two left now on the whole of the Wye, and they remain here as the river divides the village in half. That's why we have Symonds Yat east and west. We have no bridge, so we have to rely entirely on these ancient methods for getting people across. No one else is allowed to do so, as the inns themselves have the sole ferrying rights by ancient royal charter, and with those rights no one must interfere with in any way. these very large rocks are here on our right, on our starboard side, well, this is a salmon pool we're just entering, one of many on the River Wye, but this is pool green rocks, and the local record salmon caught in this pool, 47 pounds, about 23 kilos, caught by Mr. Patton. Took him about an hour to land, very early in the season. But that's just the local record. I'm sure you ladies will be delighted to know a lady actually holds a record for the whole of River Wye, fishing just above Hereford. This particular lady, 18-year-old Miss Doreen Davy, caught a salmon that weighed 59.5 pounds. Big fish. And being of such weight and dimensions, it took quite a bit of landing. It took the lady, Miss Doreen Davy, an hour and 15 minutes to land this fish into a rowing boat. It was 4'6" long, had a 29-inch girth. If you want to see the fish, it's in Hereford Museum. But that is the record to the present day, 59.5 pounds, which is just under the record for the British Isles, which stands at 64 pounds, and that was caught upon the River Tay in Scotland. And yes, that was caught by another lady, Miss Ballantyne, the Georgina Ballantyne. So you ladies do hold one or two important salmon fishing records. Just appearing through the trees here on our left now is our little local parish church. Whitchurch Parish Church, Church of England church, pretty little place, and a very old one in 1989. It celebrated its 700th anniversary, making the first service held here in 1289, over 700 years old. And during the floods of February 2020, after Storm Dennis, the river was flowing over 4 foot through the church there. So as you can see, that's a lot of water and a lot of damage to the church. It took them 12 months to get back up and running after Storm Dennis. Built right out of the village on the river banks, as in days gone by, with the roads being poor and the railways non-existent, all ceremonies came up by river. Weddings, funerals, christenings, all came up by boat, and that tradition is still carried on to the present day. We did 3 weddings here last summer, bringing the guests up and then the brides, and after the marriages at the church here, back down to Symonds Yat East to the Royal Lodge for their reception. So it's nice to see these traditions kept going. Patron saint of the church is a Saint Devyzed, who was a Welsh Celtic saint who brought Christianity to this area some 100 years before Saint Augustine, who's usually credited with bringing Christianity to these parts. And this part of the river, though, we're going through at the moment, from the church right up to where we turn a few hundred metres upstream, is known as Barbel Alley. A lot of barbel on this stretch of the river, and during the coarse fishing season we usually get quite a few barbel fishermen on this left-hand bank. Their season, the coarse fishing season, closed on the 16th of March, and it reopens again on the 16th of June. The salmon fishing season, well, that's well underway. That started on the 31st of January, and they'll fish right through now to the middle or the end of October, depending on which stretch of river, they salmon fish on. And the salmon fishing at the moment is supposed to be catch and release. They're hoping to build some stocks back up. In a few moments we'll be turning the boat about, heading downstream through the valley to the head of the rapids. Now this part of the river that we'll be leaving shortly is known as Old Forge, and just a matter of 300 yards upstream from where we're turning, it gets quite narrow and also very shallow. You can walk straight across the river 300 yards upstream from one bank to the other. You usually get the salmon fishermen in the early evenings in the middle of the river up there trying to catch the salmon and the sea trout. Hence that's why we can't do longer trips. Even canoeists in certain spots up there, even they run aground and they get stuck. So it gets very shallow 300 yards upstream. As I was saying about you ladies having these salmon fishing records, but there was a gentleman that fished on this river that lived a few miles upstream from where we are at the present time in the little village of Wolford, by the name of Robert Pashley. And Robert Pashley, he died in 1956 at the age of 76, but he was well known throughout the salmon circles right round the world, because fishing on this river with a rod and line, Robert Pashley caught the amazing amount of 10,237 salmon. 29 of these were over 40 pounds, and in his best year in 1936, that year alone he caught 678 salmon, and the total weight of his catch throughout his lifetime exceeded 63 tons of salmon. The late and great Robert Pashley, the Wye's greatest salmon fisherman, a sort of local John West as it were. They called him the Wizard of the Wye, whose records I believe will never be surpassed. There was a big salmon now taken out of this river. They called it the monster salmon. Didn't quite make the record books as it was found dead in the river. It wasn't actually caught on rod and line, but they estimated its live weight at anything between 80 and 100 pounds, which would have been a world record for wild Atlantic salmon had it been landed. But they did take lots of photographs. I did show you a photograph earlier on of the monster salmon. It was 4 foot 11 3/4 in length, and 33¼ inches in its girth. The monster salmon didn't quite make the record books, as it was found dead in the river by a local poacher who hadn't seen one this big before, and he'd seen a few. So he took it along on a door to have some photographs took, and that was in the 1920s. The monster salmon. The monster.
People of note, and of many that have journeyed down the River Wye over the years, Lord North, a former Prime Minister, the late Queen's mother, she sailed down through here, and an author by the name of William Gilpin, who in writing his book Observations on the Wye, coined the word picturesque. This is where the English language adopted that word from Gilpin's description of his journey down this river from Ross-on-Wye to Chepstow in the year 1792. Picturesque. Journey down the Wye, William Gilpin. And last but by no means least, Lord Nelson, I suppose our most famous admiral in our history. In July 1802, Lord Nelson himself sailed down through here, where we're going through this afternoon, on his way down from Ross-on-Wye to Monmouth on the Wye tour. Going down to Monmouth by boat to receive the freedom of that town. Accompanied him on his river voyage Sir William and Lady Hamilton and all the entourage, being welcomed at Monmouth by a crowd of some 6,000 people, and a salute of cannon fire from the top of the Kimmin Hill, according to the newspapers of the day. Several visits to the area during this period. Nelson, the reason for his close connection to the town, Monmouth was the only town in the country to have a large naval monument to himself, his fellow officers, his battles and campaigns, and that monument still stands on the Kimmin Hill, overlooking the town and the river. Well worth a visit if you're ever in the area, and drive up onto the Kimmin Hill to see Nelson's Temple, as it's sometimes called, and capture from there some magnificent views. Nelson also visited the Forest of Dean. The purpose of these visits was to ascertain what timber was available for the building of ships for the British fleet. He was appalled when he found that nearly all the English oak had been felled in the forest to supply charcoal to the many smelting furnaces that operated in the area during that period. So concerned was he had the Admiralty address Parliament and demand the Forest of Dean be replanted with English oak for the future needs of the British Navy. Well, this request was granted, and these thousands of acres of oak was replanted. But of course they weren't to know at this time that iron would become the major shipbuilding material. But these oaks flourished, and this is why today the Forest of Dean boasts the biggest population of mature English oak than any other forest in the country. The left-hand bank is where Symonds Yat gets its name from. The viewpoint of Symonds Yat Rock is of national and international reputation, and I'll do my best to point it out to you. If you follow the skyline up in front of the boat now, follow the skyline from right to left and keep going along the skyline to your left, keep going along, and then right up on the corner here, just before the skyline starts to slope down to the left, there's a little V-shaped gap, and in that gap, if you look carefully, you'll see a white flagpole sticking out, just coming into view about now. You'll see the white flagpole sticking out in the skyline up there. Well, that's the famous viewpoint. It doesn't look very spectacular from down here, but once you're stood on the top, it's quite spectacular indeed, because on a clear day, you can see across to 7 different counties. And you can throw a stone into the river on the other side of that hill as the river comes round in a 4.5-mile horseshoe bend. And it's from that point that Symonds Yat gets its name from. In the 17th century, there was a man by the name of Robert Symonds. He had a toll gate on the road up there, leading on into the Royal Forest of Dean. He was a Yorkshireman, High Sheriff of Herefordshire at the time, and if he wanted anyone to open his toll gate, he wouldn't say open the gate, he'd say open the Yat. Yat being an Old English word for gate. Still used in parts of northern England, and even today in some parts of Scotland they still say stick the Yat, shut the gate. So it's Symonds' Gate or Symonds' Yat. It was called New Weir previously. In the Saracens Head car park, coming up on our left shortly, we've got a couple of sculptures that have been carved in the car park there. You may have noticed the sculptures. They used to be tall trees at one time, red cedar trees, and they were starting to split. So they chopped them down to stumps about 18 years ago, and they were stumps for a couple of years until a young man by the name of Tom Harvey was passing by, like yourselves today. that's just coming into view now. If you look outside the pub there, you've got the green ice cream shop, and if you look to the left of the ice cream shop, you'll see the first sculpture, and if you look carefully, you'll see a face in it, facing towards us, just above the green hedge. Well, that face represents Vega, who was a Roman wanderer, the spirit of the Wye, Vega, as Sabrina is the spirit of the River Severn. And it took Tom Harvey 7 days to do that carving of Vega and the fish above the head. And it took him 8 days to do the other carving, which is a few metres to the left, which has got a peregrine falcon on, a cluster of butterflies, a damsel fly, a swooping swallow, a snake, and in the front of the tree there's a squirrel. It took him 8 days to carve that one. He used 5 different chainsaws, from a very long chainsaw to a very short one, and he always signs the bottom of the tree trunk with his initials T.H. Tom Harvey. Very talented young man. And right up in front of the boat now, in the hill in front of us, you've got the very tall tower-like rock, the very tall pinnacle, right up in front of the boat now. That is just a natural formation. That's called Longstone. A lot of people tend to think it's part of an old castle, or even Yat Rock itself, but it's just a natural formation, Longstone. Very popular with the climbers. And looking down the valley now towards the rapids down there, you'll see there's 3 hills coming into view in a few moments. Each hill lies in a separate county. We've just moved into Gloucestershire here on our left. That's the hill with Longstone in it. Gloucestershire on the left. Herefordshire's on our right. And the hill at the end of the valley, going across the centre there, just coming into view now, that's the commencement of Wales, the county of Monmouthshire, giving us our 3 county view. Gloucestershire on the left, Herefordshire on the right, Monmouthshire straight ahead. And you'll be able to see the start of the rapids going down on the left as we turn. Very popular with the canoeists, as there's a 28-foot drop in the riverbed over a half-mile stretch of water, which creates fast-flowing water, which the canoeists enjoy. I don't know if there's anybody interested in railways on board, but sadly on the right-hand bank here, these wooden railings you see on our right going down, right the way down, that is all that remains of Symonds Yat railway station. Once part of a beautiful line that followed the river all the way from Ross-on-Wye till it came to the back of the hill in front of us here. It didn't go round the loop, it came through a tunnel under the Yat Rock, which emerges just to the right of this green hotel in front of us on our right-hand bank. Just to the right of the hotel, there in the trees, is the entrance to the tunnel. 495 yards long, the tunnel, still in very good condition. Came out of the tunnel there, next to the green hotel, into the station, up on our right, and then it just followed the river then all the way down to Monmouth, where it changed in Monmouth for Chepstow, changed in Ross for Hereford. Closed down by the famous dock of Beechin in 1963, known as the Beechin Cuts. Great shame when that closed. It would have been worth a fortune then. And if you look above the green hotel here on our right, if you look above it in the hill up there, you'll see the white and red terracotta chalet. That's an original Swiss chalet. It has been modernised over the years. A lot of money has been spent on that chalet, but that came into the village by train in 1912, just over 100 years ago. They've done a lot of filming at that chalet there up on our right over the last few years. Lots of different television programmes and bits and pieces there. But most recently, Netflix, I don't know if you've got Netflix, but there's a series on there called Sex Education. Gillian Anderson from the X-Files, she was in it. But when they were in the village here on location, that's where they did a lot of the filming, up at the chalet there up on our right. If you've seen any of the episodes, you may recognise the chalet up there. Well, you've enjoyed your little lonely tour of Symonds Yat Village and Valley. I hope you have a pleasant evening and most importantly a safe journey to wherever you're heading. And if you can please remain seated until the boat's securely moored, and then please mind your heads when leaving the boat. Please mind your heads when leaving the boat. Thank you very much. Thank you.
so fucking okay. The bridges are so nice. So